The twin suns hung low in the red alien sky, burning down on the cracked desert floor. A large crowd had gathered on the edge of the execution grounds, their voices quiet, their eyes filled with fear. Giant banners of the Zarnak Empire waved. In the wind, soldiers in black armor stood around a wide circle, holding shock spears and watching the prisoners. One by one, the prisoners were pushed into the center. Most were aliens' green skin, silver horns, or glowing tattoos, but one stood out. A human, his name was Daniel Cole. He had no chains. He didn't need any. His hands were bloodied, his face swollen, his legs weak from beatings. Yet he stood, tall, quiet, watching, waiting. The crowd whispered, "Why is a human here? He's the reason the rebels lost. He's the one who betrayed us." But Daniel said nothing. On a tall stone platform stood General Vokor, a 7-foot alien, with dark blue skin and 4 burning red eyes. He raised one hand, and the crowd instantly went silent. "These prisoners," Vokor shouted, "are enemies of the Empire. They stole food. They spread lies. They dared to fight back." He turned and pointed at Daniel. "And this one, this human, helped them." A loud cheer erupted. Some threw stones. Others screamed for blood. Daniel didn't flinch. He didn't blink. He just looked at the horizon. Calm, General Vokor gave the command. "Begin the executions." The guards moved forward. Blades were drawn. A prisoner cried out. The crowd leaned in, hungry for the first kill. But then something happened from behind the soldiers. A small voice spoke. "Wait." It was soft, childlike, but clear. Everyone turned. A little alien girl was walking across the sand, barefoot, her long white hair blowing in the wind. Her eyes glowed faint purple. She looked no older than 10. "Who let her in?" A soldier barked. "No." Another shouted. "She's not supposed to be here." The girl ignored them. She kept walking, step by step, toward the circle of death. "Stop right there." A soldier raised his spear. "This area is forbidden." Still, she walked, and then she pointed, not at the guards, not at the general, not at the other prisoners. She pointed at Daniel. "Save the human," she said. The crowd gasped. General Vokor stared down in disbelief. "What did you say?" The girl raised her voice. "Save him." The general's eyes narrowed. "And why should we listen to a child?" The girl didn't answer. She just stood there, finger still pointed, staring at Daniel like she knew him, like he mattered. Daniel's eyes finally moved. He looked at her, confused, shocked. He didn't recognize her, but she remembered him. The guards waited for the next command. Vokor laughed coldly. "This child thinks her words matter. Someone remove her." 2 soldiers stepped forward. The girl didn't move. She didn't run, and then something strange happened. The soldiers stopped. Their hands shook. One dropped his weapon. "What is this?" One whispered, "My legs. I can't move." The crowd began to panic. Something was wrong. The air around the girl shimmered, glowed. Vokor growled, "She's not normal." Daniel stepped forward slightly, staring at her. "Who are you?" he asked softly. The girl's eyes locked with his. For years, no one had seen her. She was just a shadow in the background, moving between crowds, never speaking. Some thought she was a ghost. Others believed she was a beggar's child. But today, she stepped into the light, and her voice stopped an execution. Soldiers were frozen in place, unsure whether to grab her or bow. General Vokor clenched his fists. "Who is this child? Speak your name." The little alien girl didn't answer. She stared at Daniel. Her hand was still raised, pointing at him with calm eyes, like a queen making a choice. "I said speak." Voker shouted again, his voice echoing across the ground. But the girl remained silent. The energy around her grew stronger. The sand at her feet began to swirl in a slow circle. The air buzzed. A strange light shimmered behind her. No one moved. Daniel looked closely now. Her face. It wasn't new to him. Something about her eyes, the way she stood, stirred a memory. Long ago, during a war zone rescue, Daniel had found a starving alien girl hiding under a broken transport shuttle. She was scared, hurt, and half-conscious. He had given her food, wrapped her in his jacket, and carried her to safety. But that girl was gone. Or so he thought, until now. The general's second in command leaned in. "Sir, I think she's one of the old blood." Voker narrowed his eyes. Impossible. They were all wiped out. "No," the commander whispered. "Look at the mark. There." On her left hand was a small, glowing Symbolan ancient crest, shaped like a spiral sun. A royal mark, forbidden, forgotten. Voker stepped back. "She's from the House of Arlani." Gasps filled the crowd. The Arlani family had ruled this sector long ago, before the Empire crushed them. Their bloodline was erased. Or so the Empire claimed. But this girl, she was proof they failed. Daniel slowly stepped forward, eyes still on her. "You remember me," he said quietly. She nodded. "Why now?" he asked. Her lips parted. "Because kindness must be returned. Even if it's dangerous." The general shouted, trying to regain control. "Guards, take her. She is a threat to the Empire." But the guards did not move. Some looked afraid. Others dropped their weapons. None wanted to touch her. One soldier whispered, "That mark ... It's protected by old law. Touch her and your blood turns to ice." Another murmured, "The curse." "Of the royal oath, I've heard stories." Voker growled, frustrated. "Fine, then kill them both." He raised his blaster. A red beam formed at the barrel, but the girl raised her hand again. This time, not to point, but to protect. A glowing barrier of blue light formed in front of her and Daniel. The blaster fired, but the beam vanished the moment it touched the shield. Silence. Daniel looked at the girl again. He wasn't just surprised, he was afraid. The glowing shield faded. Smoke rose from the air where the blast had vanished. The ground was scorched, but Daniel and the girl stood unharmed. The crowd didn't cheer. They didn't move. They were too stunned. Daniel took a slow breath. He looked around at the faces, some angry, some frightened, some just confused. But no one stepped forward, not even the guards. No one wanted to touch the girl with the glowing mark. He turned to her again. "You said I saved you. When?" The girl looked up at him, her voice still calm. "Planet Virella. 7 years ago. You were part of the rescue ship." Daniel's eyes widened. He remembered. That mission had gone wrong. Rebel attacks had turned the city into fire. Most soldiers stayed in the sky, but Daniel had disobeyed orders. He went down alone to help evacuate civilians. And in the rubble, he'd found a little alien girl hiding beneath a dead body. She was weak, barely breathing. He had carried her all the way back to the ship through gunfire. She had disappeared after that. He never knew what happened to her. Now she stood beside him, glowing with strange power. The general's voice cut through the silence. "None of this matters. One memory does not erase your crimes, human or hers." He turned to the crowd. "This girl is a relic of a dead bloodline. Her presence is illegal. Her powers are treason." But his voice had changed. He didn't sound strong anymore. He sounded nervous because the people were whispering, quietly, behind hands. In hushed voices, "She's one of them. They were kind rulers. before the Empire came. I heard her family could speak to machines and stars. Maybe she's here for a reason. The fear was changing, turning into curiosity, maybe even hope. Daniel saw it happening. And so did the girl. She turned to him and said, "They don't remember the truth, but they feel it." "What truth?" Daniel asked. She looked up at the twin suns. "My father ruled this land with peace. He taught unity. When the Empire came, they burned every book, every statue, every word that spoke of kindness. They said he was weak. But you," she looked into Daniel's eyes, "you were like him. You saved without asking for anything. I waited 7 years to return the favor." Daniel looked around. "You picked the wrong time." She smiled faintly. "No, I picked the perfect time." The general had heard enough. He barked at the guards. "If you won't kill her, then kill him. The human dies now." 4 guards rushed forward. Their weapons hummed with power. Daniel tensed. But before the first strike landed, the girl raised both her hands and whispered a word in her native tongue. The sand beneath the guards' feet exploded upward. Not fire, but smoke, light, bright. Columns of blue light shot up like pillars. The guards screamed and fell back. Blinded, then came silence again. Now everyone looked at the girl not like a child, not even like royalty, but something more. Daniel whispered, "What are you?" She looked at him. The execution grounds had turned into something else now. It's not a place of death, but a place of silence. A place where one child's voice had stopped a war. Machine in its tracks. But silence didn't last forever. General Bokar's calm cracked like glass. His 4 red eyes flared. His claws clenched so tightly that his armored gloves cracked. His lips curled back to show sharp, black teeth. The little alien girl had humiliated him right in front of the Empire's loyal citizens. And worse, she made the human look like a hero. He pointed at her, his voice shaking with fury. "You think this is a game, child? That power makes you?" "Right." The girl didn't blink. She stood in front of Daniel like a shield made of flesh and memory. Volker turned to his soldiers. "I command you. Bring her to me live or broken." The guards didn't move. He roared louder. "I am the law." Here still, no one stepped forward. The girl slowly reached into her cloak. From a hidden pocket, she pulled out a small metal sphere. Its surface was smooth silver and glowing with ancient symbols. She held it up. Everyone stared. Then it opened, hovered, and projected a glowing image in the air. It was a man, an alien king from long ago, wearing royal robes and a crown of stars. His voice echoed through the execution grounds. "To my daughter, if you find this, it means our people are gone. But hope lives in you. Trust no general. Trust no council. But if you find a human who shows kindness, stand with him." The hologram faded. Gasps filled the air. Vokar's mouth opened. This is false." "No," the girl said. "This is my father, King Elvier of the Arlani bloodline, and I am the last heir." Daniel stepped back in awe. The girl, just a child, was now the key to something much bigger. Volker growled, "Even if you are royalty, you are nothing without your people." The girl answered softly, "You're wrong. My people live in memory, and in every being who still believes in mercy." The general's rage boiled over. He pulled a long sword from his side, a cruel blade laced with dark crystal. He jumped down from the stone platform and marched through the crowd. People stepped away, not because they were afraid of him, but because they didn't want to be between him and her. Daniel stepped forward to shield the girl, but she gently pushed him back. "I'll handle this," she whispered. The general stopped 10 steps away. You dare stand against me? She raised her chin. Yes, and so does he. She turned to Daniel. Will you fight for what's right again, like you did back then? Daniel looked into her glowing eyes. Something inside him, something he thought the war had broken rose again. Yes, he said, I will. The crowd held their breath. Voker snarled and charged. Sword raised. But he wasn't just facing a little girl anymore. He was facing a legacy. The sword came fast, howling through the air like a storm wind, but it never reached the girl at the last second. Daniel stepped forward, grabbing a fallen guard's shield and raising it just in time. The blade struck with a blast of sparks. The crowd screamed. The force knocked Daniel to the ground. The shield now cracked and useless. General Voker turned toward him with fury. Always the human. Always in the way. But this time, it wasn't just Daniel standing between the girl and death. The prisoners, those marked for execution, had begun to move. A tall insectoid alien spread his arms wide. A furry, one-eyed beast growled and stepped beside Daniel. A reptilian prisoner hissed low and threatening. They weren't rebels anymore. They were protectors, and they all stood around the girl. Voker took a step back. You think this is a revolution? These criminals are nothing. The little girl stepped forward again. Her voice was soft, but it struck like thunder. They are not criminals. They were captured for refusing cruelty, for hiding children, for giving food to the hungry, for mercy. She held up a small metallic ring, rusted, but still glowing faintly. It hummed in her palm. Do you know what this is? She asked the general. He squinted. A toy. No, she said. It was a slave collar. Yours. I found it in the Empire's vault. The crowd gasped. I broke it with my own hands. And when I did, it spoke. She threw the collar to the ground. It cracked open, and a voice echoed out. It was a recording subject. Human Daniel Cole, captured after refusing to kill civilians. Assigned to labor prison. Memory wipe? Failed. The voice stopped. Everyone looked at Daniel. You were a prisoner. One of the guards muttered. Daniel nodded slowly. I was forced to serve the Empire, he said, until I escaped. And now, I see they're still using lies to control everyone. Akur screamed, Lies. You're nothing but a weak species. Without machines, without claws, you survive by crawling like worms. The girl stared at him. No, we survive because we remember how to be human. Vokar's hand shook on his sword. You want the truth, he shouted. Here it is. He reached under his armor and pulled out a black cube. He held it high. The wind around it howled. This is the death protocol, he roared. One word from me, and every prisoner here dies instantly. Implanted chips deep in the spine. Fail-safes, buried by the Empire in secret. The crowd stepped back in terror. Vokar grinned like a madman. One word, and your little hero dies. Along with everyone he inspired. Daniel looked down, feeling cold metal beneath his skin at the base of his neck. He hadn't noticed before. No one had. It had been there the whole time. The girl's face turned pale. You won't do it, she said. Why not? Voker sneered. Because I know your secret, she whispered. Voka froze. You served under my father. You were a low-ranking officer. He spared you once when you disobeyed, and now you rule by fear, because you could never rule by respect. The cube in Vokar's hand began to shake. He dropped it. The crowd watched it hit the ground and crack. Open, no explosion, no death, just silence. The girl stepped forward and picked it up. She whispered a word. Release. And one by one, prisoners dropped to their knees, holding their necks. Not in pain, but in relief. The chips inside them were dead. Daniel felt it too. The pressure vanished. His body felt free for the first time in years. She broke the code. Someone whispered, "No." "She freed us," said another, "and for the first time since this began." The people began to cheer. Not for war, but for hope. The cheering had barely started when the sky exploded. A deep, vibrating boom shook the execution grounds. Dust rained from above. Flames burst from the far walls. The Imperial gunships were coming not to rescue Vocabot, to erase the entire site. "They're going to destroy everything," Daniel said, eyes wide, including the prisoners. Vokar's last command was now clear wipe the evidence, kill the truth. The girl turned to him. "We have to run." Now the crowd scattered. Soldiers dropped their weapons and ran. The prisoners huddled close to Daniel, trusting him more than anyone. Behind them, fire spread fast. The execution grounds turned to ash. "There's a way out," the girl shouted. "Beneath the city, my father built secret tunnels." Daniel grabbed her hand. "Show me." She led him to a broken stone slab half buried near the center stage. A circular mark was carved into it, same as the royal symbol on her hand. She pressed her palm down. A deep rumble shook the earth. Then the stone slid open, revealing a hidden staircase leading into the dark. "Go," Daniel shouted to the others. This way, one by one, the prisoners climbed down. A mother carried her child. A lizard-like alien helped a wounded bird creature. Enemies became allies in the face of death. Daniel stayed near the back, keeping guard, but just as he was about to follow, Bjoker rose from the flames. His armor was burned, his skin blistered, but his sword still glowed. And his hate was stronger than pain. "You think you've won?" he growled, dragging his blade. "You think kindness wins wars?" He charged at Daniel. Daniel had no weapon, but the girl turned, her eyes glowing, her body surrounded by rings of golden light. "I said, he is under my protection." She raised both arms. A wall of fire burst up between Daniel and Voka, swirling with wind and energy. It didn't burn Daniel. It danced around him like a shield. But Voker screamed as the heat struck him full force. Still, he pushed forward. Daniel saw the girl stumble. Her hands trembled. Her energy was fading. She can't hold it much longer. Daniel realized, without thinking, he ran through the fire, ignoring the pain. He tackled Voker to the ground. The two wrestled, fists and elbows striking bone and metal. Voker grabbed Daniel by the throat. "You should have stayed in your cage, human." Daniel spat blood. "And you should have never let her grow up." With the last of his strength, Daniel slammed Vokar's head into the ground. The general stopped moving. Breathing hard, Daniel stood, chest rising and falling. The fire began to die down. The girl fell to her knees. He rushed to her. "You okay?" She nodded weakly. "Just tired. I used too much." Daniel picked her up. "Then I'll carry you this time." As he stepped into the tunnel with her in his arms, the stone door began to close behind them. Above, the last gunship fired its main cannon. The execution grounds vanished in a thunder of fire. But below, in the darkness, hope lived on, and it was moving fast through stone tunnels, with a human leading the way and a glowing alien girl in his arms. The underground tunnels stretched for miles beneath the ruined Empire City. Dust fell from the ceiling. Old roots cracked through the stone walls. But Daniel kept going step by step with the girl in his arms and the survivors following behind. She slept lightly against his chest. Her glow had faded, but her breath was steady. They finally reached the end-around stone door covered in ancient symbols. Daniel stopped. The girl opened her eyes. "Place my hand there," she whispered. He lifted her hand to the center of the door. The symbols lit up. The stone groaned, then slowly slid open. On the other side was light, warm, golden light. A hidden valley stretched out beyond the door. Clean air, waterfalls, alien birds flying overhead, and at the center, a forgotten city touched by the Empire. A place built by her ancestors. It's a safe place. The survivors cried softly. Some dropped to their knees. They had found peace. A second chance. But peace doesn't last without truth. Days later, a message was sent broadcast across nearby star systems. The girl stood before a hidden camera, her royal mark glowing again. Daniel stood behind her. She spoke. "The Empire told you lies. That kindness was weakness. That the human was your enemy. But he saved me, and I watched him save others. Even when he was alone, even when he had nothing." She turned to Daniel. He was not a warrior. He was better. He was human. Daniel stepped forward. "I didn't come to fight," he said. "But I won't run anymore, if my voice can stop. One more death, then I'll speak." The message spread fast, faster than any imperial lie. Across ships, colonies, and even among soldiers, people began to whisper, "Did you hear? The human survived. They say the little royal girl calls him her guardian. Maybe we were wrong about Earthkind." And in places where rebellion had faded, sparks returned. The Empire tried to stop the broadcast. They failed. Because people didn't fear truth anymore back in the valley. The girl looked up at the sky. Daniel sat beside her, still healing, still quiet. "Do you think peace is really possible?" she asked. Daniel smiled. "If a child can stop an army, and a human can survive the impossible, ... then yeah," he said. "I think peace has a chance." She leaned her head on his shoulder, and for the first time in years, stars above the valley felt like home again.